problem. I have a really bad feeling about this.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Silent Green is people!
Yo, Adrian!
Let's put a smile on that face.
I gotta warn you, Clark. They don't play the same games here as they do at them regular casinos.
Royale too.
Welcome back to Casino Royale with Cheese. My name is Shane, and this is the show where we discuss movies that came out exactly 20 years ago. With me, as usual, I have the man who I wouldn't even buy for $1. This is Mike.
What's up, bro?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, actually. Got to spend some quality time with the fam this weekend. Went out and watched that new Black Panther.
Yeah, That's good. We were talking a little bit about it, but you said it was good. You liked that movie.
It was good. I really liked it. The character of Black Panther is awesome. He's a badass.
Pretty badass. All right, then. Well, if you like comic books and you like movies, then go watch Black Panther. Everybody listening right now.
I think everybody listening right now has already seen it. And it's been out for like 2 weeks.
And I'm probably not listening, so. But yeah, it's been out for a couple weeks. I think just about everybody but me has seen it, so yeah, it's one of those deals. Actually, I'm gonna deviate some, Mike. I haven't watched the last Marvel MCU movie that I watched was the Spider-Man Homecoming, which wasn't that long ago that it came out, but the last one that I think I watched before that was Ant-Man. And so I haven't been keeping up with a lot of these movies. I didn't watch Thor. Oh, I did watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I thought that was alright. But to me, I almost kind of feel like these movies now, like I was really excited when they first started this thing out. And I was like, man, this is going to be so sweet. And we're going to have like this influx of comic book movies. And then I guess the producer, Kevin Feige, was talking about how he wanted to do this franchise where it was just this ongoing thing, couldn't afford to miss a single one of them and all that. And so now I'm sitting back and I'm like, well, what if I just want to watch a Spider-Man movie, without Tony Stark running around? We're going to bring, what's her name, Pepper Potts into this thing, and all this crap. I mean, do you get what I'm saying at all?
I do. I can tell you that I am doing my best to keep up, though.
Yeah.
I got Thor Ragnarok sitting on my calendar right now. Rented it from Redboxes just today. So we've been doing our best to keep up. I enjoy them. I think they're fun. I mean, if you accept them for what they are, which is just, big action, semi-funny superheroes that do some pretty unbelievable things, then it's fun.
Yeah, it's good, I guess, escapist entertainment, kind of. The only, I guess, real major issue I have is, like, say there's somebody that went out whenever, like, the first Captain America movie came out, and they're like, man, this is going to be great. They're going to start making Captain America movies. I love Captain America. And so we watched the first one, and he was like, all right, that was good. And then he went and watched, like, The Winter Soldier, and he was like, I guess, who's this Black Widow chick? I don't know, And then you get around to, like, Captain America, the Civil War movie, and if you haven't watched anything except the Captain America movies, you have no idea what's going on, And so I'm kind of like, well, what if you just are like a Captain America guy and you don't really give a crap about the Avengers? You just want to, like, check out Captain America, And so I guess with me, like, Kevin Feige was like, if you don't watch every single one, you're not going to be able to keep up. And now I'm kind of like, well, then I guess I won't watch any of them. It's kind of my take on the whole thing. Like, I'm not excited about any of them, really.
Yeah, but in every, we'll say, episode of the Marvel universe, they harken back. They at least mention real quick, like, what happened in the last one to tie them together.
They do. Somewhat. I mean, you're not going in completely blind, so I guess that's something. But I don't
Okay,
know.
well, we're not talking about
That's
Marvel
litigation.
today.
Doesn't matter. We'll talk about those in 2008, I guess. Anyway, no, it was my pick this week, right?
Yes.
First off, we're still writing that Titanic thing. In fact, I was telling Mike, this is my pick. Then we have one more that is going to be your pick, and then we have one more that we're doing like a special deal, and then we're going to pick back up because Titanic, as of the first weekend of April, was no longer number one at the box office 20 years ago. And so with this being my pick, I chose to do Robocop this week.
Robocop.
What is, first off, let's talk about your experience with Robocop, Mike.
I don't really remember too much of it. I do remember seeing it. I definitely didn't see it in the theater. I would have watched it with my dad, like on a rental. I know we didn't buy it. I know that when I watched it, I thought it was really dark.
Yeah.
There was some really over-the-top moments in it for me as a kid that, like, let's see, how old was I? Let's say I was 10.
I was 87, so yeah.
Yeah, it would have been 88 before I would have saw it on VHS. So let's say I was about 10 years old. And there were some parts that were probably a little bit too much for me to be watching.
That's, yeah. So you guys, like, rented it, or?
Yeah, we rented when I was a kid. Yeah, we rented it.
Yeah. Right.
But like I said before, my parents were always down. Like, if I could handle sitting through it, they let me watch it.
Wow, yeah. No, mine went that way. So I guess whenever I saw this movie, I was living in the suburb of Kansas City, and we got like maybe 3, 4, 5 channels. We were actually living out in the country, and so one night, sure enough, they had Robocop was going to be on TV, and I was like, man, that looks awesome, you know. And there was a whole slew of robot movies back in the 80s, and a lot of times they were complete garbage, like Robot Jocks or Robot Wars and stuff like that, just real crap, you know. And so my dad, he recorded that one off of television for me, you know. And so I never actually saw like the one that was the uncensored one, you know. And so going back and like watching it now, I'm like, good grief, dude, like this thing's brutal, you know. I've obviously seen it since then, but yeah, man, this movie's it's pretty graphic, man.
I can't imagine this movie uncensored.
Yeah, it's not exactly the feel-good movie of 1987, you know. But no, it's if you censor it, man, you're cutting out a lot of stuff. I'll tell you, that's a full-time job right there, getting this movie ready for TV.
Got it down to like a 45-minute movie.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But no, I watched it as a kid, and I loved it. Of course, now that I'm older, I kind of get like some different take on the movie, like as far as like social commentary or some character stuff. But back then I was like, man, these two robots are kicking each other's asses, you know. Like, this is awesome. But I have a different take on it nowadays, I suppose.
Well, we watched it last night. My wife Nicole had never seen the movie. In fact, it came out the year she was born.
Oh yeah.
And she debated not even watching it with me because she was like, Robocop, what the fuck is that? That sounds so terrible. And then I was like, we watched the reboot like a year or two ago, so we watched it.
Yeah. What did Nicole think?
She said it was better than she thought it was going to be.
Yeah, my wife said the same thing. We sat back and watched this thing. You know, you go through that thing where you like meet somebody and you were showing them all your cool stuff that you've encountered along the road of life. And so Robocop was one of those things that I showed to Taylor, and she thought that it was going to be stupid as hell. And then she watched it. She's like, it's not bad. She's like, it's kind of violent, but yeah, it's good.
Kind of violent.
So yeah, man, this thing is all over the place. So first off, this movie, it has so much stuff to it. I would consider myself kind of a Robocop fanboy, even though like I can stomach the second movie. Like, it's not anywhere near as good as the first one was. Then they did Robocop 3. It was absolute garbage. They made a TV show. It was garbage. They made 2 cartoon shows, and I think I only saw one of them, but to my knowledge, they're both garbage. Canada at one point came out with this Robocop miniseries, which I saw an episode of, and it was garbage. They've done comic books. I've never read any of them. And then they did the remake a couple years ago, which in my opinion was garbage as well.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed.
No, it's not good. And they were trying to... It was a little gimmicky because they were trying to stick with the PG-13. And Robocop, in my opinion, is a property that really doesn't work well in a PG-13 environment at all. So you kind of know what you're getting whenever you watch Robocop. So, let's talk about some numbers.
Okay.
All right. First off, this movie was number 1 at the box office. And it was made on a budget of $13 million. Now, with that in mind, I actually was unable to find the worldwide box office numbers. I looked for probably a good, 20 minutes or so. I mean, it's not like I'm doing a podcast about it or anything.
That's due diligence. 20 minutes, that's due diligence. You did a good job.
Yeah, that's fair. And in so doing, I can only assume that it had to do with the liquidation of Orion Pictures as to why they didn't have any more solid numbers regarding how it did internationally. But do you want to take a stab? It was made on $13 million budget. Do you care to guess how it did domestically at the box office?
$147 million.
Man, you are way off. You were close last week, not even near this week. It might have done that well internationally. I don't know. As it turns out, domestically, it brought in $53,424,000 total.
Wait, was it a number 1 movie?
It was, yep.
One weekend?
No, it was actually number 1 for 2 weekends.
2 weekends.
Yep. After 2 weekends, it had made back its budget plus another $1 million, and so then it just kind of fizzled out. It went from 4th to 6th to 8th to 9th to 12th, so on and so forth. So it, I mean, considering we talked about whenever we did Silence of the Lambs, Orion Pictures, and their propensity to do just these, hip shot movies that they weren't sure if they're going to make money or not. Like, 53 million on a $13 million budget. That wasn't bad for them, That's $40 million not counting production budget profit, so it was all right.
Well, and after watching this movie, if they spent $13 million on it, someone was burrowing away about $7 million. So, because they definitely could have used.
You thought it looked that cheap?
Huh?
You thought it looked pretty cheap? I thought it looked pretty good.
You watched the same movie I did, right?
Yeah, it looks
okay. We'll get it.
Okay, so keep this. Yeah, but keep in mind too that, like, Star Wars, the original, was made 10 years before on a $10 million budget, but I think that these visual effects actually stand up all right, So maybe that's just me. I don't know. But anyway, the movie, it was directed by a director from the Netherlands. His name is Paul Verhoeven. He has directed such movies you would have heard of, like Total Recall. He did Starship Troopers, Basic Instinct, and the eponymous Showgirls, which I've never seen.
Well, all of those except for Showgirls are pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. I don't know that I've seen Basic Instinct. What is Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone.
Yeah. I like Sharon Stone. So he also
you get to see a lot of her in
yeah?
Basic Instinct. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, isn't that the leg cross thing where they're interrogating her and all that? Yeah. They did I think a straight to DVD sequel actually a few years back, and it floundered hard. But they did. He directed the movie Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon, which I'm not a fan of. I saw it in theaters and thought it was crap.
Yeah.
This movie was starring Peter Weller as Alex Murphy, Nancy Allen as Ann Lewis, Dan O'Herlihy as the old man. He's like the CEO of this OCP. They just call him the old man. He never gets a name. We've got Ronnie Cox playing Dick Jones, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferrer, and Ray Wise, Ray Wise was the guy, he played Leon in the movie But the only reason that I'm familiar with him at all is because he was in Twin Peaks, which is a great show. So, anyway, do you have anything that you want to contribute before we get started?
Nope.
About it? Nope. Okay. Well, we can do that. So this movie takes place, I want to say, in the future, but it's not super far in the future. Like, it doesn't look like the Jetsons or anything, you know?
It feels like it's supposed to be in the future, except for they're still driving like shit cars.
Right, the old Ford Tauruses and shit. Yeah,
that's heavily used in this film.
They are. I guess originally Pontiac was supposed to develop some sort of car for them, and they said that it looked like garbage, and they were all pieces of shit. And so they're like, "Screw it, we're just gonna go with the Ford Taurus, spray paint them black, call it good." Anyway, the film opens, and you catch this a couple times in the movie. It's probably about 3 times, but they call it a media break, and it's just this little stupid thing to drive the plot forward, basically to get all of their exposition out of the way. And it's these 2 news reporters, and they're giving out all these bullshit stories and stuff.
Media break's one of my favorite parts of this whole movie.
I agree. I love the media break. I especially like the commercials during the media break.
Well, that's pretty much what I think is what sets the tone for what kind of culture we're involved in at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that first media break, that opens the movie in a media break, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And the first commercial is like for the Heart Center, where you can like purchase aftermarket hearts.
Right. And the guy's like closing line of the commercial is, "Remember, we care." Like, the whole commercial is all about like these different models of hearts that you can buy, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we care."
Yeah, I
great stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of so you find out in this media break that there's this company called OCP, or Omni Consumer Products, and they essentially have this contract, whereas what they're supposed to be doing is trying to develop Detroit, which is completely run amok, and try to turn it into like this city that people would want to live in again, since the government has failed. And so we are told about this guy. His name's Frank Fredrickson. He was one of the cops. I guess there were 3 police officers that were gunned down by this fellow Claire's Boddicker, and there were 3 of them. Frank Fredrickson was injured, but he managed to get away, and he's basically struggling to not die at that point. And then we get this interview from one of the vice presidents at OCP, Dick Jones. And he's like, "Well, you know, they know what they signed up for, you know, so I don't know what to tell you." That's basically his stance on things.
Well, he's concerned about is like the development of Delta City.
Yes.
And whatever they got to do to get there. They reference it several times throughout the film, like, we break ground in 6 months, this has got to be ready.
Yeah, Delta City is like this urban development program that they have set up where they're basically, effectively, OCP is allowing the city to like tear itself apart so that they can come in behind it and like doze everything and build Delta City in the meantime, you know. And it's kind of funny because in this movie, it's kind of like, you know, this corporation has run amok, essentially, you know, whereas like, you know, the local government has completely failed. And so it's interesting enough. After that, we are taken to like this precinct in Detroit where there's, I mean, it's just like chaos in this friggin' thing, you know. Like, I can begin to tell you what the hell's going on. Like, people are yelling and stuff like that. And this dude, Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller, walks in, and as it turns out, he's been transferred from another
Metro South
in Detroit. Yeah, Metro South. I guess this is Metro North.
Yeah, apparently it's a pretty nice precinct.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the nice one, although it's debatable how much of Detroit you could label as nice these days, you know, because that place really is bad. But interesting, I actually read a statistic not long ago, Mike. This is a total caveat from what we were talking about, but I guess supposedly if you want to commit a murder, then go to Detroit to do it, because they say like 75% of the murders that take place in Detroit go completely unsolved.
Damn.
So, food for thought. Yeah.
Well, they were. I don't know if it's still happening, but I know just a couple of years ago you could buy a house for like $25.
Yeah. I actually know a buddy of mine, and he was working for Bank of America, and a lot of these houses were being foreclosed on and stuff. And he said that the average home in Detroit was selling for like less than $5,000, you know? Like really bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, the walls are all rotted out. They look like shit, you know? But,
well, yeah, all the piping had been stolen, all the wiring had been stolen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically just buying like a little plot of land with the skeleton of a house on it. But, but a lot of people did, and they've actually, like, the art scene is like booming there. Small independent companies are starting to boom there. Like, Detroit's starting to pick itself up, man.
It's trying. Go Detroit. We got your back. Because I remember back in the 60s, like, that was the place. I mean, I don't remember personally, but I've seen, you know, like, documentaries and stuff, and, like, Detroit was supposedly, like, the place to live, you know, like, upper crust. Yeah, exactly. And it was high dollar back in the day, and it's fallen by the wayside pretty poorly since then. But here's hoping you guys figure it out, Detroit. So, but
back to the precincts.
Yeah,
we meet after we meet Murphy. We see Lewis.
He goes back first. He goes back to the locker room, and the cops are talking about going on strike and stuff. Yeah. Oh, one thing I love is that there's a lawyer talking to the sergeant, and he's like talking about his client. And he's like, attempted murder. It's not like he killed somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
the locker room is all sexes. Mm-hmm. And they're really pissed off. Like, all the cops inside the locker room are really angry, and they're talking about maybe striking.
Mm-hmm. They are. And because I guess they're tired of getting basically picked off like fish in a barrel, you know, which who could blame them? They feel like they're being underrepresented in their plight. So anyway, the sergeant comes in with this little wormy dude. He looks like Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters. His name's Cecil, that little skinny dude with the glasses and all that. And he's carrying a box, and they go over to Frank Frederickson, the guy that they mentioned in the media break, over to his locker, and they slide his name tag off the door, thereby implying that he did die. And so anyway, he's like, hey, we're not going to strike. He said, we're not plumbers, we're police officers, and we don't strike. It's basically what he tells him. And then he calls Alex Murphy to go out to the front, where then we meet Ann Lewis.
Right, and she's this little, like, 5 foot tall, young-looking blonde, and she just, like, kicking the shit out of this dude they just arrested. Mm-hmm.
It's a great intro for her, too, because it looked like at first she was about to get her ass whooped, and then she just beats the shit out of that dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And I love Nancy Allen. She's a good actress, and I think she's really pretty, and so rock and roll. Go Nancy.
She does a really good job in this movie.
Mm-hmm. She does. She conveys emotion very well. One thing I wrote down here is that the Kevlar that it looked like Alex Murphy like grabbed out of his locker, it looked really light to me, man. Like, I have comforters thicker than that, you know?
It looks like a catcher's, like, pad that
almost
in baseball.
Yeah, because I know with me, man, you know, military-wise, whenever you grab, like, your bulletproof vest or whatever, and, like, once you get the plates loaded in there, that sucker's, I mean, I'm not going to say it's heavy, but it's not light. You're not going to pick it up and throw it around, you know, or anything. But that thing did not look bad at all. You know?
I mean, you're strapping a dozen pounds to yourself when you put one of those on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, it's based, you know, like a gallon and a half of milk, but yeah. Ann Lewis kicks ass, and then they go down. She's like, glad to know you, Murphy. They go down, hop in the car. He decides he wants to drive while he's breaking in a new partner.
Well, she says, I'll drive you around until you know where you're going. And he says, I always like to drive when I'm breaking in a new partner.
Yeah.
So kind of like telling her, like, yeah, okay, I got this.
Right, yeah. I can figure it out. Mm-hmm. Then we cut over to OCP, where they're getting ready to have a board meeting. And there's Bob Morton, played by Miguel Ferrer. And I think I read that not long ago he actually passed away. But
oh, really?
Yeah. It's too bad. There's actually a couple of people in this, but he's an old Star Trek alumni. He was in Star Trek 3 as one of like the bridge crew members of the Excelsior. The dude that played Clarence Boddicker, I'm drawing a blank. Kurtwood Smith. He was actually in Star Trek, and Peter Weller was in Star Trek as well. So yeah, there's a bunch of old alumni in here.
I'm glad you got your Star Trek fix.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. They're getting called up to this meeting because the guy that we saw during the media break, Dick Jones, he apparently has this Ed 209 project he's been working on, and he wants to show it off in front of the board. What did I say?
You said N.
No, I said Ed.
Oh, well then I misunderstood you.
Oh, okay.
What's the E? It's ED. It stands for enforcement,
deployment, or something. I'm sure.
Oh man, I remembered it. I forgot it. Doesn't matter.
Did they actually say?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Enforcement drone or droid.
Okay.
That's what it is.
I got you. Yeah. It's ED 209. They just call it Ed 209.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going up to this board meeting, and I guess they're just talking shit about Dick Jones, how they don't really like him. Apparently Bob Morton has this other plan lined out where he's got a competing project that he's been working on.
It's called Robocop.
Yeah, but he hasn't been able to institute it because Dick Jones basically been like cock blocking him to the CEO of the company. And so anyway, we finally meet the Ed 209 robot once they start the meeting, and that sucker is awesome, dude.
He's fucking huge.
That thing is badass. I love Ed 209, bro.
It's fucking huge, and it's got fucking huge cannons on it, and it's got a voice.
Missiles and shit.
Yeah, it's got a voice that's like, please drop your weapons.
Yeah, you have 20 seconds to comply. Yeah, all that shit. And it like growls at the guy too.
It makes some more animalistic noises throughout the movie, actually.
It does, especially one of the last times we see it is pretty great.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's this guy, Mr. Kinney, that they want to have a demonstration with the Ed 209 robot, and so
what a dumb fucker. What a dumb fucker. Like, seriously? Hey, Kenny, we want you to hold this gun and point it at this big fucking robot with all these goddamn guns pointed at you. He's a law enforcement robot. You know exactly what he's gonna do.
To be fair, is it really Mr. Kinney's fault? Because that means that they had to have loaded this thing before the meeting started.
There's so many things wrong with it, but I'm telling you right now, if I was Kenny, I'd be like, fuck off, you hold that gun.
Right? It's your robot, you do it. Yeah,
I'm gonna stand over here.
Right.
It reminds me of earlier this year, or maybe it was 2017, there was a president of a driverless car, and he was trying to demonstrate the safety of this car, so he stood in front of it, he got ran the fuck over. The car didn't stop itself, and it ran him over.
I did not hear about that. That is great.
You can YouTube do that shit.
I mean, it's not great because dude got run over, but
he didn't die.
Funny though.
It was slow speed impact, but still, like that shows you like you might have confidence in your shit, but sometimes things happen.
Stuff happens, yeah.
So you hold the fucking gun.
Right, but with these scientists developing it and Dick Jones, nobody thought maybe we should take the bullets out of here first. Like let's go ahead and unload this thing, and then we'll do the demonstration. I'm just saying, But anyway, they had Mr. Kinney grab this big ass gun and like pointed at the robot like he's threatening it, and then so sure enough, Ed 209 starts tripping, and he's like, throw the gun down, and so he throws the gun down, but the thing doesn't like register that he threw the gun down, and so it winds up like blowing this dude to Kingdom Come, and
blowing this dude to Kingdom Come, he shoots him like 70 times in the chest with like 50 millimeter rounds, bro.
Man, there wasn't anything left of that dude to salvage, Like, this isn't even like open casket funeral appropriate,
Don't we think that's a little bit of overkill here, guys? Like ammunition consumption or something? Like, can't we conserve a little bit here? Like, I think 2 or 3 would have done the job pretty fine. No, we're gonna empty 2 clips of however many rounds this robot can handle. By the way, we haven't even mentioned the fact that when this thing moves around, it is like claymated, similar to the fashion of like the original King Kong.
But I love it though, man, because it kind of works out. The fact that it is a robot, and so its movements are so like jerky and stuff like that. I think it looks great. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, but when you compare that to the next robot we see in this film, he moves like shit.
That is true. Or even like looking back, like 7 years before with the Empire Strikes Back, even like the AT-ATs, the Imperial Walkers, like they actually, I think the visual effects look better on those than the Ed 209.
Oh, 10 times better.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just love Robocop, so I'm willing to give it a certain amount of leeway, I guess.
Better on you than me, man.
I guess so.
Luckily, I don't have to see this Ed 209 that often in the film.
No, and even sometimes whenever he's not walking around and stuff, you could tell that there's like somebody that's like moving the top half of this robot around, you know, like swiveling him and pointing his guns and shit like that, you know. Anyway, as it turns out, after this debacle with Ed 209, Dick Jones is getting his ass chewed out by the old man, the CEO of the company. And
that's the first reaction the old man has too. Like, I can't believe you failed me.
You know how much this is gonna cost me? Yeah, he does not give a fuck about Mr. Kinney.
Mr. Kinney's laying there in a pulp on top of your Delta City model, and you're chewing out the guy who runs the program because he failed you.
This is gonna cost us $50 million in interest payments alone. Yeah,
and at least 3 months setback.
Yeah. You could be a little bit sad about the dude that just got his head blown off, but whatever, dude.
Or start coming up with like a cover story, like, oh shit, what are we gonna tell the news? What are we gonna tell the family? Like, we just nuked this dude.
Mm-hmm. And nuking is a good term for it, because literally, dude, that dude looked like some ground beef. Like, that was it. Bob Morton, the young fellow that's doing the Robocop program, he sees that as an opportunity, and he actually goes up to the old man. And he's like, hey, okay, I know that this is kind of a disaster area. He's like, but I might have a deal that maybe would work, and we could try to pick up some of the pieces on this. I've been working on this Robocop program, and the old man's like, all right, yeah, I'll check it out. You know, do a presentation for me, like a half an hour.
Yeah, he buys on immediately.
Yeah, he's down for it. And of course, Dick Jones, the guy whose pet project this Ed 209 was, is pissed off, you know. But, so after that, they basically say that everything's good to go. All they need is a volunteer for the Robocop program. And so we cut to where Officer Lewis and Alex Murphy, they're just chilling, drinking coffee, whatever, waiting for a call. And he's twirling his gun around. And he explains to her that, yeah, you know, my kid, he watches this TV show where the guy always spins his gun on his finger and all this stuff. He's like, and I think it's kind of fun, you know. So
the name of the show is called like TJ Laser.
TJ Laser, which sounds like something straight up out of the 80s, dude. Like Airwolf or something, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The
Airwolf, yeah. Airwolf was badass, by the way.
Airwolf had a great theme song to it.
I was a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of Knight Rider. I was a big fan of A-Team. I was a big fan of Airwolf.
Yeah. I watched a lot of Magnum P.I., it seemed like.
I was into the mustache, man.
Really? That was the 80s, bro.
I know he was some big heartthrob, but, you know, he just didn't move me that way.
You know, he was supposed to be Indiana Jones, right? Tom Selleck was.
They made a good choice by making it Harrison Ford.
I agree. Maybe someday we'll talk about Indiana Jones, because I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. But
I'm sure we'll get there.
I'm sure. Anyway, they get a call, and they're like, hey, we got bank robbery that's taking place, and we need people that are in the area to come chase down these dudes. And they're in this thing. It looks like almost like a van that would deliver meat or something crazy like that.
You call those like a bread truck.
Yeah, there you go. And they have like the sliding doors on the side and stuff, you know. And then we're introduced up front to Clarence Boddicker and his happy band of men.
And I just think immediately, like, that's fucking Red.
Yeah, Red Foreman, you bet. That dude is a legend, bro. If after watching this and like a couple of things I've seen him in, like if you only know him from that 70s show, then you are really missing out, because he is a fantastic actor, dude.
Like, plays the same guy mostly.
Yeah, he does. He plays an asshole. And it's funny, too, because I heard that he's, like, the nicest dude ever, you know? But, man, he plays a cocksucker really well, man. Like, he's the villain in this that you love to hate.
Oh, yeah, he's really, really, really good as a villain in this.
Mm-hmm. Pretty shifty fella.
He does some of my favorite scenes.
Smith is a legend. Oh, yeah. Yeah, by far. Just the opening scene. Well, we're about to talk about it, but, yeah, the opening scene with him and Alex Murphy's great. Great. Anyway, there's this big car chase that ensues, and you kind of get the idea that Alex Murphy is pretty resourceful, actually, as far as like strategizing like ways that they could try to stop this vehicle. But they managed to evade him and Officer Lewis, and they follow him to this old steel mill.
Well, they evade him by throwing a dude through the windshield of the cop car.
Yeah, one of the guys got picked off in the leg, and they just chuck him at the windshield of the cop car. Oh man, I love the part where toward the beginning he's like, "Oh, we got cops on our tail," and Clarence Boddicker is like, "Well, slow down," and he's like, "You want me to slow down?" He like starts kicking his chair. He's like, "Slow down, you dumbass!" Like, it's great, man. Anyway, they go to this steel mill where they've chased him down. Turns out there's no backup coming. And they even talk about it earlier on in the movie, is that the backup for like the police and all that, it's just ridiculous, the wait times, because of all the crime that's taken place.
Well, because all their funding is going to OCP. It's not going to the police department. That
is true. And that brings up an interesting point, because you kind of wonder, is OCP, like, you know, are they bleeding the city dry? I mean, because I kind of go both ways with that. Like, OCP's kind of obviously they're this 80s company that's, you know, ridiculously powerful, and they're in control of more stuff than anybody should be, really. But on the same token, I think that they actually do some good stuff. Maybe their motives aren't great, but I mean, they do come up with Robocop, and he does a lot of good for the city. And yeah, they're kind of dickheads about like how they go about it as far as Alex Murphy and all that stuff. But I mean, do the ends outweigh the means, I guess, is where I'm coming to, you know?
We find out before this movie is over what exactly is going on.
Yeah, we do. Anyway, we have...
So they debate, that Lewis and Murphy debate whether they should go in or not, because there's no backup.
Yeah.
And they choose to go in. We know there's at least like 6 heavily armed dudes in this building. We're going to go in, just the 2 of us. We got this.
And it's a big building. Like, it's not like they're all in like one room where you can go on, you know, pick them off. Like,
no, it's a big industrial building.
Yeah, they could be anywhere in this thing, you know. We find out Aunt Lewis is a meat gazer.
Yep.
Gets
her punched right in the face for it, too.
Mm-hmm. There's this guy taking a piss, and she's like, all right, hands up. And so he's like, mind if I zip up my fly or whatever? And she like looks down at his dick, and like right when she does, he like pops her in the face, knocks her over this ledge to the floor below. And I think that we're led to believe that she's still alive, but obviously she's at least incapacitated for the time being.
Well, she fell in a pile of something.
Yeah. It looked like logs or something with a blanket over it to me. Like, that wouldn't be comfortable.
No.
Anyway, Alex Murphy goes in. There's these 2 guys that are, like, fucking around. One of them is Emil, and the other guy, I don't think we ever learn his name, because he's really not around long enough to get to know him anyway.
No, he gets shot, like, almost immediately after he gets in there.
Instantly, yeah. And they're watching that stupid show, and that was kind of the intro, is that there's like the American version of like Benny Hill or something like that, where it's like this old man, and there's all these scantily clad blondes around him and all that, you know, and he always says, I'd buy that for $1, you know, and everybody just thinks that this show is like the funniest thing ever, you know, which it's not.
Well, it's not, but like I was really confused when I was watching that. Like, why do they keep showing the same clip of this dude with a couple like attractive women, scantily clad attractive women, and he always at the end of everything says, I'd buy that for $1. And then I realized it's commentary on television is what it is.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
Like, all you need is a catchphrase, some hot chicks, and a creepy old guy, and we got a good show.
Right. Yeah, I caught on the fact that it was a catchphrase. And it kind of speaks to, because it was right after that, I want to say, that like Urkel became prominent, and I think Full House might have already been around at that point. And so these are shows that like lived off of catchphrases, you know. So,
yeah, and Tim the Toolman Taylor, he didn't necessarily have a catchphrase, but he did that
that stupid growling crap that he did. Yeah,
it was like a monkey ape sound.
Yeah, which admittedly I actually still kind of like Home Improvement. So
no, they're not that they're
funny as hell.
It's not that they're bad shows, but they're making a point.
Right, it's just brainless, mindless entertainment, you know. And yeah, it's the same joke. Everybody always thinks it's funny. So anyway, he shoots the one old dude that's wearing a waffle hat or whatever, and then he turns to Emil, because Emil's about to grab his gun, and he's like, "Don't do it," or something like that. He's like, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," and which does factor in later on in the movie. And then, so then you find out that all these guys have gotten the drop on Murphy at that point. And this is one of those scenes that's difficult to watch, man, because it is brutal stuff, you know. Because they go through, at first, Clarence is just messing around with them or whatever. And then he winds up blowing his hand off. And then they just go through and like ravenously just mow this guy down with whatever guns they happen to have on him at the time, you know, just emptying every gun they can on him, you know.
I mean, no exaggeration. After Red, who I'll call Boddicker for the rest of this podcast, by the way, after Red shoots off Murphy's hand, he's like, "Nah, he's all yours, boys," and they literally dump like 60 to 70 shotgun shells into this dude. And he's just screaming, but he's not falling.
No, he's
just standing up, just going just getting lit up, but not falling. Not falling. I don't buy it.
No, I don't either. But it's pretty legit though, and it makes the scene more effective to keep in mind that this dude's still alive going through all this crap, you know.
And then Boddicker comes in. This guy's basically a pulp of meat at this point, and puts one right in his dome.
Yep, puts one in his head, he's done. And about halfway through all this, Ann Lewis makes her way to where Murphy's at, but it's like behind this grate that she can't manage to get to him. And finally, after they like just decimate Alex Murphy, like, then they all leave and she winds up coming out and finding him. And of course, there ain't much left to save at that point, you know. We see him get life-flighted to the hospital.
Which I don't understand, right? Like, if I'm a first responder,
yeah,
that dude's dead.
He's really dead, man. Yeah. They actually, so he wasn't dead on the scene because they used the defibrillator, and like you can hear he's hooked up to the heart monitor and all that stuff. But so even after all that and getting shot in the head, he's still not dead, you know. But
not dead.
He's having all these flashbacks to like his family and stuff like that, and then flashing back to the moment leading up to the point which he took one in the face, and then all of a sudden he passes away, where you get the like a first person view of everything that he sees, and then all of a sudden everything starts coming back on, you know.
But like in a monitor, like on a television.
Yeah, it looks
monitor.
like it's digital, kind of, you know. And he awakens with this digital eyesight, and there's these people that are like running around and adjusting stuff and drilling shit into him, and it's all just in snippets, you know. You're just seeing pieces of what he sees. And so anyway, we cut to a scene where it's Bob Morton, and he's talking to one of the doctors, and the doctor's like, well, you know, we were able to save his left arm. And the Bob Morton's like, I thought we were going to get rid of everything. And he's like, well, you know, the other guy that's with him's like, well, we signed a waiver, we can do whatever we want to him. He's like, all right, get rid of his arm, you know. And so they even talk about at one point like how they're gonna wipe his memory out and all that stuff. And they go through like New Year's Day, and this lady like kisses him. Like, you could tell that there's people that are like reconstructing him $1 Million Man style. And,
but this is where my question comes in. So why are we doing this? Like, if he's completely robotic, what's the point that he looks like a human?
Well, that's fair. Because you get the idea that it's really just his brain and like his face in the suit. So you can make him look like a big mechanical spider, like some off of Wild Wild West if you want. You know? Like, that's a good question, because he's a biped, and like he even has this gun down where like a little holster built into his leg where somebody would like holster a gun, you know, kind of.
I mean, his entire body is robotic, except we find out he uses like a mush like baby food to sustain his organs.
Right. Which I don't even know why he would have organ. Well, I guess it's to keep his brain going, but I could tell you the real world reason is that, you know, if we do it this way, then it can just be a guy in a suit, as opposed to us using like, you know, stop motion animation for the whole movie. You know? So,
well, I get that, but he's programmed, right? He's got directives.
Yes.
So like, that's coming off of some type of hard drive. Do we just need him for his eyeballs?
No, it's his brain.
His brain, but he's completely programmed.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, so they talk about, especially in the second movie, how the Robocop program, basically it was like a unique deal. They just happened to have the right person, and so I think that they wanted somebody that was like this incorruptible type of cop or something like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if he wiped his memory anyway, then he's not going to remember being incorruptible, you know? Like, he just has in his brain whatever, you know, whatever you program in there, you know? So I guess that's a valid point.
All right, well,
I'm not really sure.
I was willing to suspend disbelief a little bit, and we get to see Robocop in his full glory as he makes an entrance back into the precinct. And he looks badass.
That's a great suit. It really is. From what I understand, the suit weighed like 80 pounds, and Peter Weller, who's already a skinny dude, was losing like 3 pounds a day while he was wearing this suit, you know?
Well, the suit makes him like 6 to 8 inches taller than he was.
Yeah.
I mean, he's way hulkier, bulkier, but he looks awesome.
He does. I guess they've set up this containment area for him at the police precinct, where it's these two like scientists are gonna like monitor his vitals and stuff like that, and they start going through and like doing all these different tests over all of his different functions and stuff like that, like his targeting, and they want to test his ability, like he can record stuff just by like observing it. They go through his list of directives, and I actually wrote them down. So the first one is to serve the public trust, the second one is to protect the innocent, and the third one is to uphold the law. And then we find out there's a directive 4, but it's classified and he doesn't know what it is, and that does factor in later. But yeah, they introduce like his food, which is like this red looking paste, which they describe as like being the equivalent of baby food.
Well, one of the guys tastes it. He said, it tastes like baby food.
He's like, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then we cut to where he's doing he's like on the shooting range, and he's like got this badass gun that they built for him. I've never seen anything quite like it, I don't think.
Some type of fully automatic pistol.
Yeah. And of course he's just acing all these different shots, you know. And then Ann Lewis notices after he gets done shooting, because all the cops are kind of like crowding around him to check him out. And as he gets done shooting, he ends up like twirling his gun and then sticking it back in his pocket, or in his leg where he holsters the thing. And it's this little compartment that like opens and closes or whatever. But interesting enough, so that gives you the idea, even though they have wiped his memory at this point, that he still is retaining some of what his previous memories from back before he was changed over into Robocop. And Lewis
Robocop is connected to Murphy somehow.
Yeah.
Because he does the LTJ laser pistol spin.
Right. The gun twirl, yeah. And Lewis recognizes that automatically. Anyway, he goes out on his first day on the job, on the beat, I guess. And there's these two guys that are watching that stupid show with that bald dude. And this old man and this old woman. You get the impression they run this store together. I don't even know what kind of store that was.
It's a little convenience store.
I guess they're selling comic books and alcohol and just
I think that was porn. Shit. I don't think that was comic books. I think it was porn.
No, it was comic books because the guy picks up an Iron Man comic book.
Whoa! I totally missed that point.
They didn't close in on it or anything. I just know because I've seen this movie a million times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, so they're selling just random shit. I guess it is some kind of convenience store, but it's a big one inside. I gotta say, it looks really run down. But
it's mom and pop brand convenience store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This guy walks in, picks up a comic book, goes up to the counter, and the lady's like, "Is there anything else?" And he's like, "Yeah." Open the register, put the money in the bag, you know. And then he starts talking about how he wants him to open the safe and all this other stuff. And then suddenly Robocop bursts in through the door, and like the guy starts tripping and like starts shooting at him and stuff, and says "fuck me" like constantly, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, he keeps yelling and shooting at him or whatever, and then like Robocop goes up and like bends the barrel of his gun and then bashes him into like the frozen food, like the refrigerator.
Right.
It's great. Yeah. And so
then he goes to like this other scene where there's these two like maniacs like fucking with this woman.
Yeah.
You of course you think they're there to rape her, but they're like playing games with her. Like one dude rips out his knife and like cuts part of her hair off, and like the other guy's like, "I bet you there's more hair down there," and they're like over the top crazy, like
yeah, it's way over the top.
Yeah. So just as he goes to go under her dress, Robocop smashes.
Yeah, he shows up on the scene. Next thing you know is this guy, he has the knife, he's the one cutting her hair or whatever, and he's like, "Don't do it, man, I'll slit her throat, I swear I'll kill her," you know, or whatever. And so he targets like the guy's junk from the in between her legs in her skirt, and he like, like shoots this guy right in the dick and balls, man. Great. Yeah, and of course he's in there, you know, after I always love movies where like for example like Dirty Harry, where the villain of the thing, he's been doing all this nefarious, just awful, sick shit, and then like finally he gets his comeuppance, and like he just turns into the biggest pussy ever. You know, that's so great for whatever reason, you know.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
We cut to a mayor's office, where there's this dude, his name is Miller, and he says, "I want a recount, I want to keep my job no matter what it says, and I want a raise, and I want a bigger office, and I want a car, something with terrible gas mileage." And like he just goes on this big old long list, and
I want the city to pay for it.
Yeah, I want the city to pay for all of it. And then like the police chief or whoever the negotiator is like, Miller, no problem. You want a big car? How about like a Lux or 6000 SUX?
Yeah. Which I guess they're taking a jab at Pontiac because they completely screwed up. Like, so they had a car that they made that you never see anybody. Well, I guess you do see at the end they're driving it, but they made this car that they called it the 6000 SUX as a little nod to how Pontiac botched the cars they were supposed to make. But,
the 6000 sucks.
Yeah, SUX, you bet. And so Robocop's like talking to the negotiator. He's like, just keep him talking. And so he goes upstairs, and so freaking he grabbed the old mayor that got voted out that's holding these hostages or whatever. He grabs one of the guys, he's threatening to blow his head off, and then Robocop comes up to the wall behind him and like breaks through the wall and like punches him out the window. So good. It's so good.
Right in front of everybody.
Yeah, all these news reporters are standing down there like as this body's falling to the ground, you know.
Is that when we can cut to another media break?
Yeah, this is the second media break, you bet.
And my favorite part of this media break is Nukem. A whole new play on Battleship. Nuke 'em before they nuke you.
Right. Yeah, by the Butler brothers, as they said. The commercial is really funny because they're spitting out all this like wartime jargon and talking about like military sanctions and stuff like that. And then finally, I guess at one point in the game, like you just push the nuke button and the whole thing like explodes. You know, it's so funny.
It's pretty funny.
Oh man, yeah.
It's obviously an obvious jab at the Cold War.
Oh yeah. we get back to the news break, and like Robocop has become like this media sensation or whatever, and they're having him like show up at schools and all this other stuff, you know. And so they, after that, cut to...
Well, they interview Bob
Morton, yeah.
They interview Bob Morton on the news, and he says all crime will be stopped in the next 40 days. 40
days, you bet. It's a pretty bold claim.
Shooting pretty high there.
That is, shooting high, but that's all right. After that, we see where Bob Morton is like talking to this dude, and they're getting ready to go to the, I guess, the executive lounge or whatever it is, up at the OCP tower. And he says that he has a couple models that are coming in later. And so anyway, they're in there taking a piss, and they're just kind of talking, and they start talking shit about Dick Jones. Unfortunately, they don't even realize that he's like in the stall, like taking a shit right behind him.
Well, some of the guys in there do, like, they're getting the fuck out of there quick.
Right, yeah, they know what's going on, yeah.
Well, they didn't give Bob Morton the heads up, like, shut the fuck up, dude, he's right in here.
Right, yeah.
They just all run, and then when Dick Jones decides to pop out of the stall, the other dude, like, pisses on himself a little bit, and just
I got a meeting, yeah.
Yeah, just runs out of there.
Yeah. And then we get to where Dick threatens Bob, and basically tells him, what is it that he says? Oh, he says that, you know, we used to make fun of, like, the old man and stuff like that, but there's always respect. We knew where the line was, and you just crossed it, you know, and all this other shit.
What was the names he said, though? He said, we called him... Oh, I should have wrote them down.
We called him Geezer, and one was Boner.
Boner. And
yeah. One
something
time
else.
I even called him Asshole. Yeah.
There was another, like, tight ass or something. It was all, like, body part references.
Right. Who calls somebody Boner?
I don't know.
That's not very clever at all.
And one time we even called him Asshole. Because for us is to keep this rating, we couldn't say motherfucker.
Right? Which is funny. Mike, I'm pretty sure I've called you an asshole, like, lots of times. Like, that's not that bad.
Yeah, asshole, bitch, piece of shit. You know, all of our favorite terms for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Terms of endearment. You bet. Anyway, he tells him, you know, you better hope that thing doesn't screw up, or I'm gonna be all over your ass. And, like, he ends up, like, pulling his hair at one point, which is kind of a bitch move too.
Well, he does it really creepily too.
Yeah, he, like, puts his hand up and, like, rubs his cheek. Yeah.
Like, he's, like, caressing the side of his head with his fingers. And Bob is, like, creeped out, but he doesn't, like, I'm pushing you in the chest if you're touching me like that.
Yeah, get away.
But he just stands there and takes it, and then he gets his hair grabbed.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Really, really weird scene.
Mm-hmm. Right after Dick threatens him and tells him that you better hope that thing doesn't screw up. Sure enough, Robocop screws up.
He has a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. He has a dream. Tell us about the dream, Mike.
I remember. Okay, this is where it opens up, where he's standing over his kid's shoulder watching TJ Laser, right?
I think so, but then it cuts to
then his wife says, "I really have to tell you something," and then we cut to him getting shot.
Yeah. Then we cut to where the Clarence and his gang are ravaging him. Yeah. And and then basically, like, right as in his vision or whatever, Clarence pulls a trigger, he, like, stands up, and the two guys that are supposed to be watting him, they're not paying attention.
They're doing a terrible job.
Yeah, you got one job, dude.
They went over, they looked at it looks like a lie detector type of thing that's monitoring his brain activity. And they go over and they look at it. They put a little red mark on it, like, this is what time I checked it. And they turn around and walk away. Then it goes bananas, like bonkers. Oh, it looks like the machine's about to break. These needles are moving so fast. It's making all this racket. And they're, like, talking about the game or whatever the fuck they were talking about. And Robocop just, like, stands up. And that's when they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it even shows, like, in his head, like, the stuff that he's seeing, and they're still not paying any attention. He's over there jerking around and stuff like that. No, they don't care. It's fine.
Yeah, so he stands up, opens up the cage, and just walks out. And of course, nobody can really do anything about it.
No, I ain't stopping him.
No,
whatever you want to do, man, it's all good.
He can just toss you through the wall.
Right.
They already told us, like, his grip is like 400 pound feet of
foot pressure. Yeah.
Of strength. So we know that he's super strong.
Yeah, he is. Anyway, he goes to leave, and nobody can figure out where he's going or what he's doing. And so he's walking down this hallway, and sure enough, there's Ann Lewis. And she just caught this perpetrator, whatever. And she's like, hey, I don't know if I met you yet. My name's Ann Lewis. And he's like, what can I do for you? And she's like, you don't remember me at all, do you? And he's like, Murphy, it's you. And all of a sudden, like, all this stuff starts coming back to him, you know?
No, she says, what's your name?
Yeah, that's what it is, yep.
And he doesn't know his name.
Mm-hmm.
So then she says,
and that's
Murphy.
when she says, Murphy, it's you, yeah. And so he's like, somewhere there's a crime being committed, and he dips out. And then, like, OCP gets pissed off at her because she's not supposed to be talking to Robocop at all, you know?
But she didn't really do anything.
She didn't do anything wrong. They're just freaking out because he left without them knowing anything about it, yeah.
It's like they needed someone to blame it on.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because one of the guys is like, well, she saw it fit to interrogate him or whatever, and she's like, I just asked him his name, and they're like, he doesn't have a name, he's a product, blah blah blah, you know. And they're talking about how, like, the cops are supposed to, like, fully cooperate, you know, and stuff like that. Whatever, man, get out of here. You know, shut up and go find him, quit being a bitch. We cut to where Emil, one of the guy that Alex Murphy first, he was one of the guys, like, at the beginning whenever they went into that steel mill and he was watching that dumbass show. He's going through and trying to get gas for his motorcycle. And this scene's kind of funny to me, actually, because he's sitting back and he's like, give me all the money, bookworm. And he's like, fill it up, you know. And so then he's talking about how, like, he's looking at the guy reading this book. He's like, what are you reading? And it's like this geometry book or whatever. He's like, are you a college boy? He's like, huh, you must think you're pretty smart, huh? You think you got a smarter bullet? And I'm just watching it going, what is the point of this conversation?
He just has, like, he's just a bully.
Just being a dick, man. That's it.
Yeah.
And so Robocop figures out what's going on, and he shows up, and so all of a sudden Emil, like, pulls this gun on him, and he's like, drop it. And he's like, dead or alive, you're coming with me. And the guy all of a sudden remembers back to what Alex Murphy had said, and he's like, wait, we killed you, you know. And so anyway, he pulls a gas pump out of his car, or out of his motorcycle, throws a cigarette on the ground. The whole place goes up, you know.
Yeah, the gas pumps were really weird. Like, it was just like clear PVC tubing, like, for the gas to go through.
I agree. You don't see anything quite like that.
And I don't remember them looking like that when I was a kid.
No, they didn't. They look like they do now, just black rubber.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, they're clear in the future, I guess.
Mm-hmm. They are. Pretty weird. It's definitely unique. Anyway, we get to right after that, like, Robocop, like, shoots his motorcycle, and the guy hits his car and gets flipped off of his bike, you know. He's like, Robocop's trying to ask his name, but the guy's completely messed up and can't talk to him at all.
Yeah, he hit it going pretty fast. He got pretty fucked up.
Yeah, no, he was beat up pretty good, man. We get to right after that, Robo decides that he's gonna use, like, his facial recognition software in the database at the police department. And so he has this really proprietary, you know, the hand spike.
I love it.
Yeah, it's badass, but how functional is that really? You know.
Well, it serves a couple functions. We see them all.
It does. Yeah, we do. He has this thing on his hand where, like, his fingers, like, fold forward, and this giant ass spike comes out of his hand.
Out of his knuckles.
Out of his knuckles. Kind of, if you think of, like, Wolverine almost, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And he sticks it in this hole on this computer terminal or whatever, and he's, like, downloading all this data to the computer. And
I think it's really funny because someone I think it's really funny because in the background, like, I don't know if he's a cop or an OCP employee or what it is, but he sticks his thing and they're like, hey, you're not authorized access to that. Then he, like, turns his hand and he starts downloading it and all this stuff, and they're like, he's in.
Yeah. Well, one of the guys is like, you're not supposed to be back here, and, like, all of a sudden the spike pops out like he's giving him the finger. It's great. And yeah, so then he goes through, he identifies Emil, and then he goes through and he looks to see who
known associates.
Yeah, his known associates. and the one that he picks up is Clarence Boddicker. And he goes through and looks at like his rap sheet, and one of them is the death of Alex Murphy. And so he's like, oh shit, you know, that's who I am. And so then he goes to try to like piece together like what happened at his house and all this other stuff where he used to live. And I actually really like this scene.
When he goes to his house.
He goes to his house, yeah, and he starts to walk through the house and he has these memories of like stuff that happened at the house, but like everybody's moved out, you know, nobody's still living there. And he remembers his son like watching the stupid TJ laser. He remembers like his taking a picture for Halloween and his wife talking about how much she loved him and stuff like that.
Yeah, we find out like, the thing because she comes up to him in his previous like dream sequence. Yeah. She says like, I have something I really need to tell you. And then we find out when he goes back to the house, what she urgently needed to tell him was that she loves him.
I love you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, you might think that is funny, but I can tell you, like, if my wife was like, there's something I really need to tell you, and I was like, what is it? She's like, I just really love you. Like, that made me feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, no joke. I was kind of wondering if maybe that was like a prelude to her saying something about another baby or something like that. But
yeah, me too.
No, they never go into that at all. So by this point, he remembers a lot of stuff about his life before and his family and stuff like that. And dude's pissed at this point.
His house, by the way, for like a cop in Detroit, is banging, dude. His house is so cool.
It's a pretty cool house. It screams 80s, like the built-in like sectional, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it does not look like an affordable home for most.
No, it's even like a nice neighborhood and everything. Yeah, it's a stark contrast to everything else you see in the movie. You know.
Yeah, there's even like a computer realtor that's like on wheels talking about when we tour your home, and this neighborhood is trending to improve 7 times over. So like the house would gain 7 times its value, basically.
That's true. At one point he actually gets pissed and like punches out that computer screen of that dude that's the video realtor, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is but no, it's good stuff. I like the house. I thought it was kind of weird when he goes into the kitchen and it looked like this pile of crap that was in there on the counter, like some kind of trash or vegetables or something, and it had his picture in there. Like I don't know. I've never sold a house and just left a pile of shit in there before, but whatever. You know?
Well, there's like dead plants all over the house and stuff. You can tell like the family was just like heartbroken and just bailed.
Yeah, they're just trying to get the fuck out of there. Yeah.
They never established like how long between his death to him becoming Robocop, do they?
No, and that's interesting because I was kind of thinking that when I was watching the movie too, is that from the time we see Alex Murphy like through his eyes as he's dying, the eyes closed, to the time that he reawakens with like the digital readout vision, I guess. They never establish what kind of time frame it's been, you know. And especially if you think about like Anne Lewis, whenever she sees the Robocop like twirling his gun or whatever, she looks genuinely surprised. And so I tend to think that she had, you know, not even considered the possibility of her ever seeing this dude again or in any kind of capacity, you know, robotically or not, you know. And so I got the impression that it's probably been at least 6 months or so, but I don't know.
I would imagine that probably pretty accurate guess.
Yeah.
Because of the Ed 209, what we see later, so I would guess it's probably somewhere in the vicinity.
So let me ask you this, because we see where they're taking a picture for Halloween, right? And then we see once they're like reassembling Alex Murphy back together, we find out that New Year's has lapsed. And so, I mean, would that be fair to assume that they were maybe, whenever he died, it was sometime between Halloween and New Year's? Because if so, that's a span of maybe like 3 months, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're led to believe, if you really dig into it, I mean, that could have been a Halloween from a year ago.
Right. It could have been. Never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. that doesn't really factor into the plot that much. But
no, we never see the family outside of this sequence.
Yeah, no, they've already had time to like have him die and like do the funeral stuff and like get their shit together and move and all that stuff. I mean, they're like long gone, you know. So, anyway,
starts hunting down the rest of the crew.
Yeah, they go to this crazy 80s nightclub.
Well, girls just got like their boobs hanging out, like literally.
I didn't notice any boobs in that.
Oh, well, sorry. I'm always kind of on the look for
They're
boobs. I don't know if you noticed that in the locker room in the beginning of the movie, we saw boobs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the girls was like getting out of the shower or whatever. Yeah, I did notice that. But yeah, there's this other dude, Leon, who he's the guy that was in Twin Peaks. He is at this nightclub. And
he's also in Happy Gilmore.
Is he a shooter?
Yeah, Shooter McGavin.
I don't think that's the same dude.
It's 100% the same guy.
I'm gonna look that up. I call BS on that.
So I'll talk us through the nightclub scene while you look it up.
All right, yeah, walk us through that.
So he's in the nightclub scene, and like Shane said, it's a really crazy, like over the top disco tech meets EDM rave.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
people
80s to the extreme. Yeah,
the music to listen to is terrible. Like it seems like they just was like, hey, we just need something to put in the scene. It doesn't really matter what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Just make it sound like party music. And someone's just
random shitty noise.
Someone's just in there, just like just like hammering on a keyboard somewhere to make the noise.
Yeah.
So he sees. What'd you say the guy's name was?
His name is Leon. He's the guy. By the way, he is not played by that dude. Although I could see why he'd say that because they do look very similar. Christopher McDonald is that dude's name. That was Shooter McGavin.
Are you serious?
Yeah. The other guy.
Do they look like they could be brothers?
The other guy is Ray Wise. Ray Wise.
Do they look like they could be brothers?
I could see them being related, but I don't think they are.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I was really excited about that. Anyways, I was wrong. So he turns around this dude, and what's he say to him?
He says something about like, doesn't he just say like you're under arrest?
Yeah, that's
you're
what he
coming
says.
with me or something.
Yeah, you're under arrest.
Yeah. And the guy tries to pull out a gun, and Robocop like slaps it out of his hand, and like somebody randomly at the club like grabs the gun, and they start like dancing. Like,
yeah, he catches it in flight and just keeps dancing with it.
Yeah, and then
Leon tries to kick him in the balls.
Tries to kick him in the balls. That doesn't work at all.
it makes like that dong sound.
Yeah,
and he grabs his foot like falling.
Yeah, he falls to the ground, and then Robocop grabs him by the hair and like drags his ass out of the club. Which is great. Yeah.
So then he goes. Oh, then we cut to Bodeker entering Bob's house.
Yeah. So Bob Morton, he's got together with those models that he was talking about earlier. There's some pretty funny dialogue in there too. But so Bob,
they're just doing blow and a lot of heavy petting.
Yeah, they're doing all sorts of cocaine, snorting it off their boobs, you know, and stuff like that. And so anyway, one of the models is, they're talking to him, and he's like, man, I just love a woman with brains like that. And then like one of the models is like, I know, sometimes I just think of something and it gets me so horny like that. So dumb, dude. These girls are complete ditzes, man. But it's
they're like competing for his attention too, because like one sprinkles some coke on her boobs, and so he goes in for it to he's motorboating the coke, and then the other girl's like, save something for me, Bob.
Yeah.
And then he comes up from motorboating cocaine boobs, nothing on his face.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good. He got it all.
He's a pro.
Yep, he's been doing blow a while, so good on him, I guess. You know, if that's your thing. So all of a sudden, doorbell rings, and Clarence is at the door, and so then like he's like, "Bitches leave," and so the chicks dip out. They're like,
"Says bitches out."
Yeah. And so one thing I do like about this movie is that he goes through and like Clarence has this disc. Well, first off, he shoots Bob Morton in the leg, and it looks like it really hurts, man. Like, some painful stuff.
He shoots him 4 times.
And that's one thing I do like about this movie is that whenever somebody gets shot, like, I don't know if it's the squibs that they use to like simulate a bullet wound, but man, it looks like every single shot in this movie looks like it is really painful, you know, like anytime anybody gets shot with anything, you know.
Yeah, and he gets shot twice in each leg.
Yeah. And of course he's screaming. He's like, "Oh, whatever he's paying you, I'll give you double," all that stuff. He puts in this disc into like this DVD player, and that's one thing I think is pretty cool is that they conceptualized DVDs all the way back then, because this was 1987. So I think they were just taking a guess, and they got lucky on that one.
Did we have CDs yet in '87?
Yes, we did.
So they were just imagining someday we're gonna put video on these things.
It'll be some type of visual medium. Yep, that's it.
And he's got. So the video comes up on all like 17 TV screens he has throughout the living room.
Yeah. Instead of one big TV, we're just gonna have all these little bitty ones stacked up. Yeah.
Well, he's got a wall of 4 TVs, and then behind him on like a pillar of some sort, there's 2 other TVs built in there.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of CRTs.
It's Dick Jones, and he's basically telling him that, hey, I wanted to try to be your friend and get along and stuff, but you just had to keep pushing, you know. And he's like, so, you know, I'm canceling you out. And so, like, then you see Clarence Boddicker pulls out this grenade with the longest fuse ever.
Well, it's got a digital readout on it, too.
It does. I wonder how much that grenade costs, because that sucker's nice, man.
I just love the fact that it has, like, this countdown timer on it.
Yeah.
So, like, if you throw it at your enemy, the enemy's like, oh, shit, I got 9 seconds to get away.
Right. Because if you're chucking grenades, you know, you're going to stand around and look at the timer, you know. I do like, because, I mean, you know this as well as I do, that a typical grenade is going to have somewhere between, like, 3 and 5 seconds. This thing had, like, 30 seconds on it, you know? Like...
Yeah, it was there for a long time, because he even does, like, a little speech as he's walking out.
Yep, he does. So anyway, the whole house blows up. With
Bob can't reach the... He tries to get that grenade, but he just can't reach it.
Yeah, it's sitting on the coffee table. He reaches up there. The grenade, like, flops over and starts rolling around as he's trying to, like, paw at this thing, and it just isn't going to happen. And he winds up getting blown up. It's done at that point.
And this grenade, like, blows the shit out of this whole house.
I was thinking, I can only assume, like, it hits some kind of gas line or something, because, man, that sucker was done, son. Like, this is a caveat that I'm going to talk about here. Whenever I went into basic training and we actually got a chance to throw a grenade, dude, I was so disappointed. Because I'd seen like this and like Die Hard 2 and stuff like that, you know? And so whenever I enlisted in the Army and we got to mess with the things, man, like, it was loud, but it was just like a big puff of smoke, you know?
Well, they're not designed to kill you with an explosion. They're designed to throw shrapnel.
Exactly.
This one apparently is designed for explosion.
Yeah.
This one's apparently for explosions.
Yeah. But, yeah, the whole house goes up. Then we go to where there's this, I guess, some type of cocaine manufacturing facility.
Yeah, and I really like, they like package them in like little genie bottles.
They do. They have them in these bottles, and they put them in like boxes, like, you know, you would manufacture something to go to Walmart, you know.
Really clever marketing though with that genie bottle. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's good. I didn't ever think too much about it. Of course, I've never bought cocaine. I don't think either. So.
Me neither.
Oh, of course, yeah. We meet. There's this Italian dude in there. He's bald. His name is Sal. And him and Clarence do not care for each other, but they're basically like trying to come up with like this territory stakes type deal where they're trying to work out some sort of criminal business arrangement. And Clarence is offering
I feel like Boddicker is trying to like get into distribution of his product.
Oh, okay. That very well could be. All I know is that he brings this dude money, and the dude doesn't look like he's impressed at all, and he's really not too anxious at the prospect of getting into business with Clarence. because he's like, dude, I could potentially like sell this stuff and have my own little army to like contend with you guys. And so then like they basically threaten each other, and then they both back down. And
well, they have a Mexican standoff.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Which that's a great scene too, because he's like, the Tigers are playing tonight. I never miss a game. You know, it's good stuff. Kerwin Smith is a national treasure. Anyway, freaking then Robocop breaks into the facility, and it's a pretty badass scene where he's just like walking in and just like getting targets on all these guys that have their guns drawn on him. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, he smokes everybody.
Oh yeah, he's just and to be fair, it's really an unfair fight, because I mean they hit him multiple times, but it's just not gonna happen, you know.
He shoots everybody except for Boddicker.
There's one other dude so he shoots the Asian guy, and the Asian guy like swings his gun around and knocks a black dude off into like the stack of boxes. But otherwise, yeah, everybody's dead except Boddicker. And he starts like grabbing him and like throwing him through these windows and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's fucking Boddicker up.
Yeah, his face is all chopped to bits and all that shit, yeah.
You can tell this is personal.
Then Boddicker basically says, he starts reading him his Miranda rights as he's throwing him through these windows and shit like that. He's like, you can't do this to me. He's like, I work with one of the guys at OCP, Dick Jones, you know, and all that. He doesn't realize that Robocop's recording his entire confession, you know, all the stuff that he's saying. And then he's basically about to kill him. He's like choking the shit out of this dude. And then he's like, you can't kill me. He's like, you're a cop. And then Robocop's like, yeah, you're right. I'm a cop. I'm not going to kill you. And so then he takes him in to be booked at the police station. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and then Boddicker just spits on the front desk and says, give me my fucking phone call.
Yeah, give me my fucking phone call.
So now we know OCP and Boddicker are like completely in bed together.
Yeah, Dick Jones is playing both sides of the fence on that one. You bet. He goes to the OCP building to arrest Dick Jones, and why don't you tell me about that scene, Mike? Because it's good stuff. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Well, I mean, Dick Jones like sees that Robocop is on the premises.
He's got a little tracking device on him.
He knows that he's headed his direction. He even like his little automatic open on the office door for him. Robocop says, "I'm here to arrest you." And Dick Jones stands up, gives up his wrists, you know, like put the cuffs on me now. And as Robocop starts to step forward, he starts like shutting down or something. And we see Directive 4 pop up on his screen. And you can't arrest officers for OCP.
Exactly. And he's like, yeah, that was my little contribution to your programming. He's like, we can't have these machines turning on us, you know. Then as he's like, Robocop goes to like draw his gun and like just can't pull the trigger, you know. That's it. Next thing you know is he's like, I want to show you to a friend or introduce you to my friend here, and it's Ed 209, and he has him like in this closet in his office, which is great,
dude.
And this is more of that hokey walking animation that you were talking about earlier, because this thing comes out of there stomping around like a damn Clydesdale, you know. Then he starts saying that I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake or whatever. He doesn't realize that Robocop's recording him saying this, you know. So, like, there's this big fight that breaks out in the tower between Ed 209 and Robocop, and they're basically
It's really not that big of a fight, though, really, because like I was expecting to see something way bigger, but basically he blows off so. Ed 209 like shoots a bunch of rounds into Robocop, knocks him down. Then he marches over to Robocop. Robocop grabs both of his arms and like is strong enough to turn one of Ed 209's arms into the other one, and he blows off his own arm. Basically, 209 shoots off his own arm.
Right. He almost shoots Robocop in the eye at one point.
Right. And then Robocop like gets out of there, hits a stairwell, and we find out 209's a piece of shit. He can't walk downstairs.
No, he can't. That's one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Is that Robocop's running downstairs, and the next thing you know is you see Ed 209, and he like looks down at the stairs, and he's like, I don't know about this. And so
he's trying to walk downstairs like your two-year-old the first time they see a set of stairs.
Yeah. So he's like wiggling his toes and stuff as he's like putting his weight down on the stairs, and then it just slips and he like tumbles down the stairs.
And then cries like a baby on his back.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a pig squealing or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's really throwing a temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about weird animal noises this thing makes, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So then Robocop decides to... I thought it was kind of weird. So I guess it makes sense that he would leave at that point because he knows that he can't arrest Dick Jones. But I did think it was kind of weird. He's like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave. You know, like, if it were me, I would call, like, backup up there and, like, sit there with this guy until, like, somebody showed up. But that's just me, you know, since he can't arrest him.
I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. But no,
yeah, he decides to haul ass.
Yeah, he dips out, and since there was this fight that was up in the tower, all these cops are downstairs in the parking garage now. And some of them put up a fight, but basically they're ordered to open fire on Robocop, take his ass out, and they're just shelling the shit out of this dude, man. Like, bad.
Yeah, a lot. Like hundreds of rounds.
Yeah, they do some pretty extensive damage, and he winds up rolling to safety just in time for Ann Lewis to pull up in her car and stick him in the car and take off.
Yeah, and some of the cops get some shots off at the car as they drive away.
Right. Then we get our third media break.
Media break!
It's great, too, because there's this commercial for the 6000 SUX. And
it gets
like,
8.2 miles per gallon.
That's so funny. I love it. Oh, man. We get to see this, like, dinosaur walking around town, you know? This cheesy, crappy dinosaur. And I'm sitting here watching this movie. I remember whenever I got this movie on DVD back in, like, the early 2000s, I hadn't seen it in a long time. And so I'm sitting back and I'm watching this thing, and I was like, oh man, they're bringing dinosaurs into this now? Like, there was a pretty crazy scene leading up to this, and now we're bringing dinosaurs into it, but no, it's just for the car.
Well, the dinosaur walks way better than the Ed 209, by the way.
Oh, that's not fair. I don't... I love Ed 209. He's my boy, dude. What is it? In the news report, they talk about how the cops have gone on strike. And they talk about, like, there's some sort of, like, nuclear deterrent, like, satellite that they had in space, and it opens fire and, like, killed
Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's Ronald Reagan's Star Wars project. It fucks up and shoots like 139. It's like 21 families, 139 people were injured. 2 of them former U.S. presidents.
Yeah, that's what it was. But yeah, none of that ever actually factors into the plot at all. But it is kind of amusing though, because they show the thing where, like, there's just random fires everywhere and stuff. It's pretty amusing. But what happens after that? We find out that what's her name? Freaking Lewis. Oh no, we get to the scene where Clarence goes to see Dick Boddicker, or Dick Jones, not Dick Boddicker, but Dick Jones at the OCP tower. There's these guys, like, sweeping up all the crap that got blown up the night before. And it's kind of funny because he's talking to his receptionist. He goes, now I'm kind of busy right now, but I'm going to have some free time later if you think you can fit me in, you know. It's great stuff. And he, like, takes his gum out and puts it on her nameplate and stuff on her desk.
Well, it's cool too because his face is so fucked up from the fight with Robocop, but you can tell, like, he's been bailed out. He's dressed nicely. Like, he's not worried about Robocop at all.
Yeah, he got a shower and a warm meal. He's doing good. Yeah. We get to see.
So then,
Dick Jones basically orders him
Dick
to kill Robocop. Yeah. They're talking, and Dick basically tells him, "I want you to kill Robocop. Everything that you said to him is admissible as evidence, and we need to take care of this problem right now." And long story short, Clarence agrees to it, and he's like, but I'm going to need some strong weapons. And they have, he's like, we got your weapons. Don't worry about that. Basically.
He says, do you have access to military-grade weapons? He says, we are the military.
We practically are the military, yeah. And we get to see where Lewis has taken Robocop. I actually, at this point, have a tendency to call him Alex Murphy because, like, he's starting to rediscover his previous self, you know? But she's taken him back to the steel mill where he first got killed. And he takes off his headpiece, and you get to see his face finally. And his face is pretty funky looking, I gotta say.
Well, you're skipping over the part that when he removes his visor, he unscrews like 4-inch long bolts from each side of the visor, so those go directly into his brain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's why I was saying, like, do they really use his brain? Because he just has these big old giant bolts in his brain.
You'd think there'd be some pretty extensive brain damage from something like that. But,
yeah.
Yeah. But no, he's takes the headpiece off, and like it almost, I think that's what they're going for. It almost looks like there's skin that's like wrapped around this metal like skeleton, you know. But yeah, his face is looking pretty weird, and he asked Lewis what had happened to his family, and she's like, they thought you were dead, they moved after your funeral and all that stuff. And he's like, I can feel them, but I can't remember them, you know. Is basically how that goes. And then so we cut to where, what's his puss, old dude that was the Dead or Alive guy. What is that freaking guy's name? I don't remember. I guess it doesn't matter. Anyway, he's watching that stupid ass show again.
I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah, that dumbass thing. And you can tell that there's all these riots and stuff in the streets since there's no cops there to stop them. Emil, that's his name. And so anyway, freaking all of a sudden Clarence shows up, and he's got this big ass looking cannon thing. I've never seen anything like that before.
No, it's ridiculously huge. No, it's ridiculous.
It is, man. And like whenever it shoots something, like whatever you're shooting at just explodes. Like it's absurd.
Yeah, and all the guys in Bodeker's crew, they grab one and they just kind of run around the street for a second, demonstrating its firepower.
Yeah, just blowing shit up.
Blowing up every car they see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's entertaining. Clarence is driving that 6000 SUX, and he winds up blowing up the other dudes just to mess with them.
That he just got, still had the sticker on the window.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so anyway, we get to where Clarence basically has that tracking device where he can see where Robocop is, and so they decide they're going to go hunt him down. And then we get to the climax of the film where they show up at the steel mill. Like Robocop's targeting is a little bit screwed up, so Lewis helps him fix it. And then all of a sudden these guys come rolling in with that what'd you call it, a bread truck?
Yeah, bread truck.
Yeah, they got the bread truck, and they're basically out on foot and stuff like that, trying to see if they can pick up on where this dude is, see if they can hear anything, whatever. And I guess long story short, it just turns into like this big chase scene, essentially. There's the black dude, he gets shot right off the bat. Emil is driving the truck, and he thinks he's gonna hit Robocop, and he winds up running into this giant vat of toxic waste.
Oh, dude. My 4-year-old happened to be like walking through the living room when that scene was on, and she looked back at me as Emil's walking around with his like skin like falling off. Looked back at me like, what is this?
He's walking around, oh! Yeah, and like stuff's hanging off of his fingers, and yeah.
He goes to one of his boys for help, and he's like, don't touch me!
It's so good. Yeah, that was Leon. It was like, don't touch me. And what's funny is, so Lewis went to go get the car because I think they're trying to get out of there. And so anyway, she winds up in this car chase with Clarence. And like at one point, Clarence is like driving, and Emil's out in the middle of the road, and he winds up hitting him. And like you can see this just goo spraying up all over his windshield. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, he splatters like a tomato.
Yeah, he does. And then you can see like the windshield wiper going. Like Clarence is like wiping all that crap off. It's funny. So then we see where Clarence is trying to evade Lewis, and he winds up flipping his car into like this like a quarry type thing with water at the bottom of it. And
some type of pit.
Yeah. And so Lewis like stops right there, and she tells him don't move or whatever, and all of a sudden Clarence like winds up shooting her. And so you see Robocop like walking out there, and he's like, I'm done arresting you, it's not gonna happen. And so of course Clarence is freaking out at this point. Meanwhile, we see where Leon, the only other member of the crew that's still alive, is up top, and he seems to have like this crane that has
Leon sees Robocop and Clarence and all this stuff going down on the pit. Robocop doesn't know Leon is up there. Like he's up on some like scaffolding type thing. Leon's got a cannon gun in his hand. All he has to do is just put Robocop in his crosshairs and pull the trigger, movie over.
That's realistic. Yeah, that would be true.
But he decides to put down the rifle, run it into a crane operator thing, and slowly move this this crane full of metal parts over the top of Robocop.
The only thing I could think of in regard to that is the earlier on in the movie we actually saw where Robocop had been like in the middle of that gas station when it blew up, and he just walked out of it fine. So I guess maybe he's thinking that he's not susceptible to explosions. But then again, what's the point of having that gun if it's not going to kill him, you know?
Yeah, it's all we all have these things, and why are we not going to use it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. Anyway,
well, he didn't use it because we need the next part of the movie.
Well, and to be fair, it's pretty badass how this whole thing kind of comes to a head anyway. With Clarence and all that other crap. It's good stuff all around. We see where Leon hops up in this giant crane, and it seems to have some kind of steel girders or something like in this basket, and he directs it to like right over Robocop, and then opens it, and all this shit just falls on Robocop, like pinning him to the ground basically.
Except for his arms.
Yeah, his arms are free.
And his head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the important shit.
But yeah, basically from chest down, he's stuck. And that's whenever like Lewis has managed to, even though she's been shot and stuff, she's like crawling over one of those giant cannon gun things, and she like aims it right at that crane and like shoots, and the whole thing blows up, which is great. I love it.
Smokes it.
Badass. Yeah, it's good. And then Clarence is like, yeah, whatever. And so he like grabs a steel rod and he starts smacking Robocop with it.
Yeah, Robocop keeps blocking it.
Mm-hmm. He grabs the pointy end and sticks it right in his chest.
Yeah.
And then you see where Robocop is like screeching and stuff like that. He pops out that stupid spike that he has, that data plug-in thing, and like stabs him right in the jugular.
Second purpose for that spike.
Second purpose for the spike, man. I gotta say, dude, like, this movie, the end of it is one of the most bloody things that like violent and gross, man, but it is so badass, dude.
No, it's good.
Yeah, it is good. And you can see where like Clarence, like, he's just squirting blood out of this thing, you know, falls to the ground. We find out in the sequel that Officer Lewis is fine. But then he decides to go back to OCP. He's got that one last loose end to tie up.
Pulls up to OCP headquarters. Yeah. There's a 209 like basically waiting at the entrance for him, and it's real anticlimactic because Robocop just picks up one of those cannon guns and blows it the fuck up.
He does. I love it whenever he blows the top half of it up, so it's basically just a pair of legs walking around at that point. As the legs like fall over, its like toe is like twitching. It's great, man.
Yeah, and it makes
so
like a
funny
sound.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. He goes upstairs to where there's this board meeting that takes place. I'm convinced these guys must have like 8 board meetings a day, because that's all we ever see any of these guys do.
Well,
besides
and
taking a piss.
And we know that we just had the night before, we just had a 209 and Robocop fucked this place up.
Yeah.
We know Robocop is out there running around somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they're up there like business as usual.
Yeah. Do we really want to have everybody here all at once? Yeah. He goes up into the boardroom. He's talking to these dudes, or he says that he's here to arrest Dick Jones, but his programming won't let him. And so he sticks his little data plug into the TV screens that are in there, and it basically is Dick Jones's confession about how he killed Bob Morton and all that other stuff. And so anyway, all of a sudden you see Dick Jones like stand up, grab this gun, which they still have a gun in there from like when they were doing the Ed 209 presentation, which is hilarious to me. What is the point, man?
You never know when you need a pistol for a demonstration.
I guess not. In a giant wooden and felt box, but yeah. It's anyway, Dick takes the old man as a hostage, and the old man's like, Dick, you're fired. And all of a sudden you see where Robocop like is now, since Dick
says,
no longer
"Thank
works
you."
at the company. Yeah. Yep, he does. Since Dick is no longer working for the company, he's able to open fire on Dick, and he falls out of the window to his death. And
roll credits.
Yeah, pretty much. There is one last line where he's like, "Nice shooting, son. What's your name?" And that's when Robocop says Murphy, which is kind of cool because all throughout this movie, it's about him trying to rediscover himself. And basically at that point, you get the impression that he has rediscovered who he is as a person. And so it's kind of a nice little bookend. But, yep, after that we get the credits. That's it. I do like in the credits at the very end, I was actually watching them the other night as I watched this movie. And it's going through all the copyright stuff and like unlawful distribution and stuff like that. And it talks about how like unlawful distribution of this film is prohibited by such and such law and will be enforced by like protective droids or some crap like that. It's pretty funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway, what was your take on Robocop?
Well, first of all, let me say congratulations. You made it through an entire episode without talking about the score.
I do like the score, but it's not one of the best scores, so thank you.
Secondly, again, we almost talked about this movie as long as it runs for.
Yeah, we're up to, what, an hour 41 thereabouts?
Yep.
I think we might have actually beat it, yeah.
Oh, God. Thirdly, my conclusion of the film, I said pretty much at the beginning when I quoted my wife, it was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember thinking it was pretty cool, because it was a Robocop.
Right.
Just that alone, I thought was pretty cool.
Right.
I thought the 209, my memory of the 209 was a lot better than what it is now, because it's just a big pile of crap in my opinion.
It's like the Yugo of robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was being built when a better version was already running around. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But overall, a pretty good movie. If you're into action flicks with good storylines, again, I'm all about that pacing. The pacing was pretty good. The social commentary with the media breaks. All in all, pretty good flick.
I agree. One thing I will say is that what you were saying about pacing is, like, when I was a kid, it seemed like this movie was longer than what it actually is, just because, like, I don't think as far as the overall story goes, like, not a single scene is wasted, like, it just, they're packing every scene full of plot, which I really like. But no, I love this movie. It's great, and it's violent, and it's gory, and it's just badass, and I love Peter Weller. I love Kurtwood Smith. Like, everybody's awesome. It's good stuff all around. I think that to lump it in with the other cheesy movies that have to do with robots from the 80s is to do it a disservice. So, yeah. I love it.
Well, unless you want to compare it against Terminator.
Oh, yeah. No, Terminator. You know, it's funny because Terminator is really good, but I like Terminator 2 better, I think. But no, Terminator's great, and it's definitely I think Terminator is one of those movies that isn't underrated. I think it's rated exactly like it should be. But anyway, that is my take on Robocop. Any final thoughts, Mike?
On Robocop?
Yeah, engine.
No,
it's Robocop.
It's a good flick.
Yeah,
if you like those kind of action techie shows, you'll like it.
Yep, you can skip the remake. That was a piece of shit, I thought.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. The remake wasn't even that big a piece of shit, but like it's not one of those movies that I can just watch it and be pissed off at how awful it is. It's just not impressive. Like none of it like sticks to me. It's not outrageously good, but it's not outrageously bad either way. Like, it's just completely forgettable, if you ask me. But, I don't know.
Well, and with the technology the way it is today, they should have been able to make a really, really great Robocop, and they just didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. I guess the word around the campfire is that what they're talking about doing is making another Robocop movie, but they're scrapping the idea of the remake. They're actually wanting to like make a sequel to this. So I'm like, well, I mean, I'll give it a shot. Shoot, if you get the right writers in there, it could be really good. So
okay, enough Robocop talk.
Yeah, your pick.
My pick. I'm really excited about it. It's a movie I remember fondly. I have a family connection to it a little bit. So the movie we'll be watching this week is Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, Jurassic Park. You know, it's fun. I had actually considered putting Jurassic Park on the list more than once, and I'm really glad you picked it because I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. You think this one's a long one? I'm sure next week's going to be way worse. So, but yeah, that works. That works for me, man.
Awesome.
Anyway, if you guys want to join us on social media, I think we've actually been giving out the wrong information. On Facebook, we're actually Casino Royale with cheese, all spelled out. On YouTube, if you're listening to this on iTunes or whatever, it's Casino Royale cheese, all one word. On iTunes, I believe it's the same thing. Am I correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. I don't think we've even messed with our Twitter at all, but it's Casino Royale WCH, since there's a character limit. And we have an Instagram. I'm even less interested in our Instagram than I am our Twitter. So let's take that for what you will.
There's been zero activity on there. Just know that we have those because a good friend of mine said that we needed to obtain the names as quickly as possible. So that's what we did.
Right. Yes.
We'll get to them eventually, I promise.
Yeah, if there seems to be some sort of interest in our Twitter stuff or activity on there, I'm sure we'll get more into it. But as for right now, nobody seems to care, and you can lump me in that same category. So, always you can email us cheesymovie@yahoo.com, and I think that's gonna be it from me. Join us next week for Jurassic Park.
See you later.
All right, have a good one.
I'll be back.